Hi guys, thanks for joining me again. So I'm going to make this Isicholo hat from South Africa. I've made a couple of hats like this for an African choir that I used to perform in, traditional wear for photo shoots or for modeling. So I do get a lot of requests to make things for people. Here are the things you will need: some beads, some thread, some fabric, and I use light drill, an old lampshade, anything that works as a board to cover the top, and some black elastic. Basically, what I'll use are beads. So I got these pink beads because I'm going to make a pink one for myself, and I have my whole bead collection, and I'm going to try and use as much beads as I can. The beading yarn, actually this is running out, hopefully this will be enough for what I need, and my fabric. So I'm going to make a pink Isicholo hat, and I'm going to use this fabric. And you need something that has a shape of what you're trying to achieve. So for me, the thing that I found that works well is an old lampshade. So this is an old lampshade. Don't worry about this thing. I'm going to remove this thing. This is a small lamp. I think it's a small lampshade, and I think this is for a kid's room. You can use the big one. It will be quite massive, and some people like that dramatic look. So I'm going with the small one. This was 50 cents. I bought it in a secondhand shop, in the Salvation Army secondhand shop. So that's where I go to look for like things that I need to use for my DIY. I don't really buy expensive things. I'm going to use to cover the top of this, and you can just use anything that you can cut that's stable. But today I'm going to use this, which is what I use for most of my costumes. It's called EVA foam. So it's just like a thick foam, and this is 6mm EVA foam. And if you don't have EVA foam, you can use old gym mats or kids play mats. And elastic to go around the perimeter of the hat. So the equipment that I used are a glue gun, a beading loom, box cutters and scissors, a pencil, a pen, clothes pegs, and a needle. The first thing that I'm going to do is cut the bottom part, which has that thing, because it's supposed to sit on my head. So I'm just going to use my flexible. So I'm going to use my box cutter and make an incision. I drew lightly, as you can see, with a pencil, and I like to cut a bit below that line so that I make room for any changes if I need to make any changes. And all I'm simply doing is cutting around with my scissors. It doesn't have to be straight the first time, but you can always fix it. This part and that part. So this part, I'm going to throw it away. I'm going to just show you, this is quite flimsy. See how flimsy lampshades are? So just be careful when you're using it. But once you get the shape and you cover it, it won't break. So this is what I'm left with. I'm just going to smoothen the edges. It looks better, and I'm going to try it on, and you can tell it's still slightly small, so I'm going to go ahead and cut a bit more off. Now, as you guys can already tell, this is not something that I'm going to wear. It's a smaller Zulu hat, so this is a kid's size hat. I already made an adult one, and I didn't have any more lampshades, and we're in lockdown right now, so this is what I have. So here we go. I'm using my EVA foam. This is not as expensive. It's a very cheap option, but it lasts very long. And all I'm doing is tracing around the hat, and then I'll just cut the EVA foam. It's better to cut this using your box cutter or your art knife, but I prefer using my scissors. So these scissors, I've already dedicated it to my EVA foam. So if there are any cosplayers out there, please don't judge me. Other material you could use is co-flute sheets. I used to use co-flute sheets a lot. Or you can use, the kids' gym mats. They're also EVA foam, so that's the same material as what I've used here. Or you can use anything that you find that will be sturdy and you can cut around. But try not to use cardboard box, because if it rains, your costume will get wet. So all I'm doing is using my hot glue gun to just stick the foam board to the lampshade, and I just make sure there's no gaps, and I go around it a couple of times, and once I'm satisfied, I can move on to the next stage. For the fabric, I use a light drill material. I find this is really good. It's not too heavy and it's not like cotton, which is see-through. So all I'm doing now is I'm just checking to see if my fabric will fit on all corners, and it looks like it fits, and then I'll just start putting my glue and sticking it onto the lampshade. Sorry guys, there was a bit of light. I didn't realize it until later on, but I went and closed the blinds when I realized the light was in the frame. So here all I'm doing is putting some pleats, and I try and make them the same size, and always make sure you have enough glue sticks close by because it will definitely run out. And so I just put a little bit of glue on the inside of the pleat and then on the back that sticks to the hat. And so that's all I'm doing here. I'm folding the pleats, and after a couple of tries you will get this, guys. After a couple of tries you get it. So when I first started, I used to make the pleats very big, and it still came out really nice. I wasn't mad about the shape of it, but always make sure when you do the pleats you also pull the fabric so it's not too loose. So now I'm going to close the blind. That's putting the light, and hopefully you can see properly, you can see clearly what I'm doing. So with the fold, you can make it as small or as thick as you want. So each time it just depends on how much fabric I have. Now when I'm done, I like to just go in with my hot glue and just stick on the inside and make sure that it's really covering all the areas. I'm just checking, and now all I'm doing is cutting the excess fabric. So I just cut as close to the edge of the lampshade as possible, and that all goes in the bin. And then I just seal any of the loose edges with my hot glue. Next, I proceed to add my elastic, and normally I have double the size of this elastic, but this is all I had, and so I'm just sticking it onto the edge of the fabric. And if you cut your lampshade and it's too big, when you attach your elastic, that's when you can actually tighten your lampshade on this stage. So because this is a child's hat, I'm just sticking it as it is. So I was going to use this nylon thread. So I use nylon thread for most of my beading, and I realized it was going to run out. I used it to measure my head. So this is how I get my band. I measure my head, and then I double the yarn. And when I realized my nylon thread was not going to be enough, I swapped to this other thread. It's also a beading thread, or some people I think use it for crochet, but it's mainly for beading. And so I just double my thread, and then I cut my thread, and I think I had 8 threads. I think 4 threads doubled makes 8 threads. So once it's doubled, I just tie a knot on one end, and that's the end that will be the beginning of this thing. It's quite hard for me to explain how to use this beading loom, but there are videos that explain how to use it, and for me I found this to be quite easy. It's a very easy thing to use, and the results are quite instant. Like I could finish beading a belt within an hour, or I could finish beading something that's got a good pattern within an hour or within 20 minutes. So hopefully I'll do a bit more beading using this loom in the future. Just let me know if you want to know more about this. But I bought this I think 6-7 years ago, and I'm still using it and I still cherish it. It's one of the best buys. And all I'm doing here now is I'm just opening up the yarn and making sure that each thread goes in through the groove. So there's those little comb things, that's the groove, and I'm just rolling it onto that wooden thing. So once I start beading, I'll start on the other end, and if I run out, I'll just unroll that wooden thing. That's what it's for. One thing that I forgot to mention is when you are loading your yarn, or before you cut your thread, make sure you put allowance for extra thread at the end. So I always put about 5 centimeters on both sides, so about 10 centimeters extra thread, so that when you finish off, you have enough string or thread to finish off your project. Once again, I'm separating the thread so that they all go in their own separate groove at the other end, just like they are nicely separated on one side. And so I'm using my needle because it's quicker, and I just put them and make sure that they are lining and they're all going straight to the other end. And this is what my loom looks like, and I'm ready to start beading. So I'm just loading my needle. So if you've been watching my videos, you should now know how to do this. And basically what I did was I tied a knot with my yarn at the beginning, and now I'm just loading my beads. So because I have 8 strings, I need to load 7 beads, and I'm just going with a simple zigzag pattern because that has worked, and I don't try and change things that have worked for me. And how this beading loom works is you just load your beads and then it goes under, and then you use your index finger, to lift the beads up, and then it goes in. So I'm just loading the beads and I'm counting my pattern, and it goes under like that, and then I use my index finger to push it up, and then the string goes over through the middle. So just watch again. I've zoomed in, loading my beads, and then it goes under, use my index finger, push it up, and then through the middle.
One hour later.
Hi. So I finished making this belt. It took me about an hour, I think maybe an hour 15 altogether with the threading, and it goes right around my head, so it fits perfectly. To attach that beaded band, I'm going to need the help of my pegs. So I'm just using ordinary clothes pegs, and I'm just putting them to see where I should start sticking, and then I'll use my hot glue gun to stick the band onto my hat. So it is quite hot, and you can see from time to time that I burn myself. So just take your time and try and pull the band so that it's not too loose as well. So I just stick it and I remove the pegs as I go. And then when I come to the end, I just tuck that little string that's hanging. I just tuck it inside the hat so no one can see it. Now my hat is pretty neat on the outside, but the inside you can see the rough edges where I cut that fabric. So I normally use black elastic as well for the inside, but because I don't have black elastic, I have this black ribbon. So I'm gonna just stick that on the inside to just cover and neaten the ends. So this is quite optional, you don't really have to do it. I mean, when you're wearing the hat, it's on your head, no one will see the inside, but I always like to have something that's neat. Hi, so I finished putting the band that I just made. I'm just going to go ahead and decorate this part, the edges, with more beads. And I normally do more decorations around the hat, but actually it looks nice as it is, so I won't do that. And to do that, I'm going to use my nylon thread, which is see-through. It's quite strong, so I'm going to focus on the center of my hat. So that's where I will start. And okay, go down, go down, go down. So I'll just thread this through like so, and then this will go in the loop of my invisible thread, which you can't see, like that. Ooh, yeah. Okay, push that away. Okay, I think we have a stable hold. So there it is. So I like doing things in threes. I'm gonna go with blue first. So 3 blue beads. 1, 2, 3. I'm just trying to get the same size, and then I push them through, and then I will go on an angle like that, and then I will knot it like that, and then I'll put this through to somewhere here, and I'll put the next color, which is purple. So 3 purple beads, 1, 2, 3, and then I'll tie it. See, so it's like that, and then I will go ahead and put it over here, and I will do white. So I'm just going with the colors that I used on the bottom. 3 white, so all done. Look at how neat it is. And then the final part is the top part. I'm just going to do a little flower design. Once I'm done, all I'm doing is just attaching it onto my hat. So I'm just sewing it on, and it's quite tricky, guys, because that foam board, it makes it quite flimsy. I should have just stuck it with some jewelry glue, but I just prefer to sew it on because I know it won't fall off. So that's basically how you make a Zulu hat. I won't try this one because it's a kid's hat. I have done a different video where I made a Zulu costume, so a full Zulu costume, and this is what that Zulu hat looks like. Make sure you're subscribed, make sure you've turned on the notification because I'm going to be making more costumes that you might be interested in.